And we're on the record. Welcome to another episode of HD Third Culture Kid. This is episode 51, and today's different because we are also shooting video for this podcast episode. So this is my face, HD, that's me, and then this is David.
How's it going, everybody?
Yeah, I think it's been a while since we saw each other's faces.
Yeah, I think it's been a minute.
It's been a long minute. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like this feels more like a natural conversation. So I actually think our podcast dynamic might be a little different with our faces and seeing your body language and how you respond.
Yeah, I think it adds to the dynamic of like making it that much more of a in-depth conversation when you do see those interactions or those like reactions to things and the body language and stuff like that. So
you get more engaged, and you kind of can riff off of the other person a little bit more because you can see their body language a little bit.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of that. So yeah, exciting. We're not doing this live yet because just in case we say something very stupid, we don't want it to go live quite yet, and then we can learn from it. So yeah, that's the rationale for it. We do also have an audience member. His name is his pseudonym is Jack. He'll be just spectating and chatting here and there, maybe popping us with some questions, and then we'll just like take it and then respond to him, or we just might ignore him. It's at our discretion. But he is a spectator. So welcome, Jack. Applause. Nice. It's a very warm welcome. How have you been, dude? Before we get into like topics.
I've been good. Just I feel like the last couple weeks things have been a little crazy. Not crazy, but just like a little bit more busier than usual for me. Just a lot of different things going on.
Really? Is it work or just other things?
Just like different things that I'm currently working on at the moment. Both like creatively and like side hustle-y, if that's even a word. So
those are two separate things. So you have one that's like you're working on creative, and then you have another side hustle.
Yeah, because like I'm definitely of the like what's that book? I have it on my bookshelf too. The whole 4-hour work week culture.
No.
It's by Tim Ferriss.
I know Tim Ferriss.
Yes. Yeah, so it's a book he wrote like maybe like 10 years ago. Just on like the idea of creating a lifestyle where you work basically theoretically 4 hours a week. That's not really the case. You're working, but you're just moving very efficiently. And one of the concepts that he started then was like, or he kind of helped promote, was just like this idea of just like buying and selling things, drop shipping, that whole world or whatever. And so, I mean, I've been doing this for about a year now, but I would say the last like few weeks, things have definitely picked up a lot as far as like work goes on that side, and just like investing more time and money into things, and like really just trying to scale things. And so that's one thing that takes up my time.
I see. So if you're busier though, probably means you're more successful now with that.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would definitely say like it's steady growth.
That's really good. What does that have to do with a 4-hour work week? Drop shipping itself takes like 4 hours a week, kind of, or that's like
no, that's like that's one of the concepts he talks about in it. Like he kind of like goes through his like mental model of how he approaches that and stuff.
Yeah, I can't imagine a 4-hour work week. That's like a stretch. Are you sure he's giving me 4-hour work days in a week?
No, he really meant 4 hours. Like 4 hours. I'm sure you know Tim Ferriss. He's very like methodical and like plans out everything. Like, yeah, he really like details how you could work 4 hours in a week. I would say for most people, it's not feasible. Like it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and things working right.
Yeah. Was a target audience people who are willing to be like self-employed? Imagine.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That makes more sense because doing a 4-hour work week with a corporation, I feel like that would be more difficult.
Like I would recommend you reading the book. I think you would find a lot of value out of it.
4-hour work week, I don't doubt it. Yeah. Let me write that down. And you know what? I won't write that down. I'll just note it mentally. As you notice, I'm wearing a tank top right now. It's so hot here. It's like 90 degrees Fahrenheit here in California, depending on where you are in California. But where I am in California, it's like really hot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not that hot where you are.
It's normally pretty hot, but it's a little bit cooler than usual. It's
What?
been pretty cool lately. Like yesterday, it rained for like half the day, and it was in like the 60s, and today it's in the
Uh-huh.
80s.
That's pretty cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not hot. Yeah. Nice. All right. Well, today's podcast topic that we decided to get on was standardized testing. Um, so, I mean, we'll talk about our experience, our thoughts on it, the validity. I mean, just our personal opinion on the validity of it, what we think it measures. Um, we're not like test experts. We're not like test scientists, like the people who like devise tests. But I think both you and I have that experience with some standardized testing. So it, the thoughts that we share are going to come from that experience. Um, do you want to share first your experience with standardized testing over your life? Like what kind of tests you've taken, what periods of your life?
Yeah, I mean, most of the standardized tests that I've taken were mostly like in school, like college and whatnot.
Uh
Um,
huh.
like the SAT test, or like we would do like I think they're called like battery tests, where like
Battery
every
tests.
year we would, like as a school, we would all have to take this like test. And I think it had to do with like partially like funding and stuff like that, but like basically you would take the test, and you would get like a score and stuff like that, but like the test didn't really like like it didn't affect your grade. It was just something that we all had to do every year.
Every year.
Yeah.
This was in like middle school or high school?
No, this was from like, I want to say like elementary school up until like high school.
Every year. Wow,
Yeah.
interesting. And what was it measuring? Just
It just
math,
everything. Yeah. Math,
uh,
reading, science.
science too. Oh, so it's like the
Um,
ACT, right? ACT do that.
it was almost like that, to be quite honest.
Wow, interesting. On top of all the other tests, like the school tests you have to take for like AP courses.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wasn't smart enough to get into the EP classes in high school,
Uh
so
huh.
I didn't reach that level. But
Isn't
we
AP
had to take
mandatory?
like
You also you don't have to take. Oh, I see. I see. I didn't know
no,
that. Okay.
because it was kind of weird too, because like in middle school and my first year of high school, the school I went to was more advanced than the school that I ended up graduating from. So when I by the time I was a sophomore in high school,
Yeah.
I basically like tested out of math, so I didn't have to take a year of math. It like whatever credits that I got, it was just kind of like for credits, like it didn't matter. So I was in a really weird situation in high school.
Interesting. When you say you tested out, it's because you did really well on the tests, or you didn't do so well. You
Yeah,
did
so
really
like
well
my sophomore year, I had tested ahead of my grade.
for math.
So yeah, so for 1 year, I didn't take a year of math. I didn't need to take a year of math basically. So I took
Wow, that's
three
interesting.
years of math instead of 4 years of math.
I feel like that'd be. Yeah, I don't know if you would want that as like a
I
student who's
regret
trying
it.
to make sure like the math skills are like and sharp still. Because you, it's
No,
like you're so good at math, and then you take a year off, so you're like you don't keep those math skills sharp. So I don't know if that's
yeah,
optimal from an education perspective.
because by the
Yeah.
time, so when I was in middle school going into high school, I had already done like algebra 2 and geometry and trig. And so yeah, I was in a really weird place to where like I basically got to like a lot of the classes that I took, like I took stats in high school, and then like I dropped it because I didn't like I it was stats is like my limit. Like I didn't do well in stats in college, and so in high school I just like decided not to take it. And then um, I also took a
The
bunch of like
sequence is weird.
science
So wait,
classes.
you took stats in college, but then you decided not to take it in high school. That's an odd
Yeah,
sequence. Wait, but you go to
it
high
was
school
really
first, and then you
no,
go to
it was a
college.
really weird time for me, because then I also like
You were
I was
taking
also
college.
in the process of like concurrent enrollment for college, which is another thing that you can do, where you can take college classes and they qualify for high school credit.
So you were taking the college equivalent for statistics while you were in high school before you actually took your high school statistics course.
Yeah, but then I didn't.
Wow.
I dropped it. Yeah.
Okay, now that makes sense. I didn't know that was possible. Wow. Well, the schooling system itself might be another podcast topic. But going back to standardized testing, battery tests every year, and then just measured like the different subject areas, your performance in different subject areas according to the test. And then would that put like you on a percentile? Like your performance was in like this percentile.
Basically.
Percentile. Yeah. So those are like the basic parameters, like the basic measurement concepts in the standardized test. So battery tests and then SATs.
Yeah.
So is that your range of experience with standardized testing?
Yeah. And then we had to, I don't know if you had to do this, but in high school, we also had to take ASVAB, which was like the military. It was like a military standardized test to where like if you chose to go into the military, it would like help you. I think it's like it helps you choose which career path to go down or like what best suits you. So we also took that at I went to a private school. So like they just had everybody take it, even whether or not you went into the military.
I see. So it's a test designed by the military to help you decide what career you might like be suitable for beyond just the military.
Yeah.
But military.
It was military focused, but you could like choose to take like it was military focused, and technically it doesn't affect your grades whatsoever. It's just like if you choose to like enlist and enroll into the military, then okay, on my ASVAB, this is what I got or whatever. And so like, I think it's like you could be like a mechanic or like an engineer or whatever the case may be.
And it's supposed to measure like your aptitude for a certain profession or just how happy you'd be in a certain profession.
Because I think aptitude for profession. Yeah.
Interesting. That sounds like a valuable data point to have, especially as you're like trying to decide what college you want to go to in high school. I didn't take anything of that sort. Cool. Well, so my experience with standardized testing, I had something like your battery test. We didn't have battery tests. We called them ERBs. I don't know if you've heard of those, but maybe it stands for Educational Review Board. But it tests. I don't think it tests for science, but it tests for math, reading, verbal. I think it reminded me a lot of SATs. And it tested like those areas, and it did put us in like percentiles on those ERBs. Maybe they did test other things like history. I was so.
You know what? That sounds like the test for us. It was called STAR testing. So it might be the same thing.
I'm gonna look this up right now for ERB. ERB test. Educational advisory, nationally trusted. I think it might be different. I mean, it might like try to measure very similar things or test very similar things, but there might just be different brands, different companies that do this sort of thing. So I took the ERBs. I didn't take it every year. I think we just did it up till like every year in elementary and then middle school. So I did that. Usually did well on the math part, not so great on like the reading and then writing part. I feel like I'm just like supporting the Asian stereotype here, but I just happened to be one of those Asians that was not bad at math. And then the SATs I took as well, and there's PSATs right too. That's not really like a standardized test; it's just like a practice SATs, so they didn't matter as much. It's supposed to be predictive of like your SAT performance, I think. And the SAT performance is supposed to be predictive of your college success to a degree, your college academic success. I guess, that's part of its utility. So I did that. But I also, David, you might not know this, but I also took the LSAT. You know what the LSAT is? It's the law school admissions test.
Some schools, some people take that,
It's a law school admissions test. So I took that. So I will be going to law school next year, which is something that you probably
really.
Yes. So I'm like, you know what? I was like, should I reveal this in a podcast where my coworkers might like listen to this? I'm like, fuck it. You know what?
Who's good? I mean, it's your life. Like, honestly,
it is. But I mean, like, if you don't, it's like that weird gray area. If like your employer knows that you're leaving the firm, will it kind of cap some of the opportunities that would have been presented to you had they not known you were going to leave the company with a limited time horizon, right? But I was like, fuck it, I just want to share that earlier rather than
Congratulations.
later.
No, that's amazing, dude. Honestly.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. But yeah, I did want to share that, and I guess I'm sharing that right now too. So I had to take the LSAT, which is a standardized test for law school admissions.
Hmm.
And I had to take it if I wanted to get admitted to law school. I could have attended this year, but I had to defer because I wanted to wait for my green card, which I did receive. So
Okay.
we'll be attending next year. So that's my experience. Like ERBs when I was young, SATs, uh, and then the LSAT. Yeah.
Okay. Out of your in your opinion, which
Which test was the hardest?
yeah,
Clearly for me, the
relative to
LSAT.
like your age and your experience?
Like calibrating for my age and experience, kind of.
Yeah.
That's tough. I think they test different things. Like the LSAT's supposed to test kind of for your like logical skills, like logical
Yeah.
reasoning skills. Partially, there's a section for reading comprehension, so you're reading, but also like your ability to reason with um, passages, like reading passages. So it's like a logic kind of based test, which I think that's why it feels more like an IQ test in a regard, like a part, like kind of like an IQ test, or at least
Mm,
partially. Because there's a lot of like logic, like conditional statements, like if this, then this, and what's a valid like inference from this state, like that sort of thing.
okay.
Um, so was that, but the SAT was also hard because I think it was more weighted with like reading and writing, and those aren't like my strongest areas. Though if I'm gonna be a lawyer, then I feel like I should be able to read really well. But it's not like I was terrible at it. I was like not. I think I was like above average. So it kind of like capped, I think, how successful I could be on the SATs because like
Mm,
the SATs, reading and writing they have more sections on reading and writing than math. And it doesn't. I don't know if you had this in your SATs, but like the SATs had an essay portion, and that was
yeah.
like graded as well.
Yeah.
But that wasn't like part of your score. But apparently, like, wait, was it? Yeah, it wasn't part of your score, but they gave a grade for the essay. I think, right? I think they gave a grade to the essay.
I
So it
think
was.
there was some like yeah, it's like it's part of your score. Yeah, I hear you on that.
Yeah, I don't think it was part of your score. Like I think every section. So I took the test when I was like on a 2400 scale. I think I heard it went back to the 1600 scale. So that's when I took
Yeah.
the SATs. So it had like every section was the full score was like 800, 800, 800.
Yeah.
So that was what tallied up to your score total. But your
Yeah.
essay did not make up that tally. So I imagine it was separate, but it was still something that colleges would see
Yeah.
and be able to look at. So like there was just a lot of writing and reading involved in the SAT, and it didn't quite favor my full like skill set, I think.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know if the SAT was harder, but I think it capped my performance a little bit more, and with aligned to my like natural aptitudes. The
Yeah.
LSAT, I think it was harder though. The LSAT, I mean, you might not know this, but I took the LSAT like 7 times, like
Really?
a shit ton of times, and I studied for it for like 8 years. You probably didn't know this, but this is all happening in the background while I was working as well too, right? It was just
Really? So this is like a long time coming then.
it's a really long time coming, and I had like a lot of
Okay.
people like give me mixed feedback about it, like you should think about other options, or like you should continue to do it. So there was a lot of struggling going on, mentally.
Hmm.
So I mean, I took that test for that long. I finally understood it, like to a point, made a few breakthrough learnings, and then I finally understood it, and I did well on it. That was able to get into good law school, really good law school. Um, and it was hard. That test was hard. Um, but I think I just felt like I could do better on it than the SATs. It's a
Mm.
long answer, but yeah, maybe the SATs for me was hard. Like if I consider my natural aptitude, maybe the SATs might be a little harder for me.
Okay.
Um, yeah, I elaborated on that way too much. But I was like ruminating and like considering all the different facets of it. Yeah.
I mean, if there's been almost decades worth of work that's been going into this, like that also sets a lot of context in regards to like how much work is required to actually pass this test, right?
Yes, but I'm an anomaly. You should not take 8 years studying for it. And you shouldn't take it 7 times over a span of like, when did I start taking it? I think I started taking it around like 2013. There's only 5 takes on my record right now because I think only 5 years shows up on your record.
Okay.
But yeah, I started taking it like 2013. So like 8 years. But nobody should be doing that really if you can avoid that. I was like, luckily though, in the meantime, I was able to like work, gain some valuable work experience to really like build some other skill sets and grow from that experience. I have it be a positive factor for my growth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't. I'm an anomaly, dude. The people don't take like 8 years like studying for this. People take like maybe 6 months, maybe on average, studying for this, and then take it and then do well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know my cousin went to law school, and he recently just got like finished. He went
Nice, nice.
to the
Congrats.
Haas School of Business, and then he went out to the East Coast and did his law school out in Virginia. And then he just finished like maybe a year or
Oh,
two ago.
so he did an MBA first, and then went to get a JD. I see.
Yeah.
There are programs that you can do concurrently, MD and JD, MBA and JD at the same time.
Really?
Yeah, I think maybe Haas would have offered that. I'm not sure. I know some schools definitely offer that. I know Penn does. UPenn definitely offers that. So yeah. Anyway, that's my experience. That's your experience with standardized testing. Uh,
Actually,
oh, you have
I
more
had another quick experience. For a
GREs.
period of time, I was going into, I was going to become an insurance broker. And so I had to
Okay.
take my tests to get my license to be an insurance broker. I
Yeah.
did terrible in that.
Uh-huh.
And that I quickly left after I failed it like twice.
There's an insurance brokerage test.
Yeah, because there's like a lot of like laws and like certain things that you can and can't do. Like you can't. They have like these weird laws with regards to like advertising to senior citizens, like online and stuff. Like all these very different, a bunch of different things. And so I worked at an insurance um, firm or insurance brokerage for maybe like a little under a year.
I see. Why did you want to go that route?
I was just trying to figure out life.
And in your search, insurance was like where you were trending towards.
Sales
That
seemed
stood out to you.
interesting. Yeah.
Our sales. I see. I see. Was there like a figure that inspired you to like explore this option? No, it was just like interesting. Yeah. I feel like there are like a lot of entrepreneurs that come from like sales.
Yeah.
So that's why I asked. Yeah. But I don't know if that insurance brokerage test is a standardized test. Would you consider that a standardized? I think there's like a certain prototypical image you have of like standardized tests, which are like SATs, LSATs, like an institution that administers. Actually, maybe
I
that does
think
include
it
insurance brokerage tests.
I think it is because of because of the laws that are like published with regards to like insurance in generally speaking.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know if I call it like I don't. So you're talking about like testing for laws, which is something that's included in those tests. But I don't know. Like the bar does that too, like the bar exam for lawyers. But I don't know if I call that a standardized test. Let me see. Is the bar exam a standardized test? Oh, it is a standardized test. Okay, well, I guess it's yeah. I guess the definition of a standardized test is broader than I thought. Okay, so yeah, so you took 3 tests, 3 kind of standardized tests over your lifetime. I also took 3 kinds of standardized tests over my lifetime. Um, Actually, there's another one I guess I took too. It was like the certified fraud examiner test.
okay.
CFE, something it's like instituted by some accounting slash fraud slash financial organization. Probably butchered
Okay.
that, but yeah, some sort of like organization as well. So I took
Okay.
that as well, which was much easier. Probably one of the more easier tests. Yeah, probably the easiest of the standardized tests I took. And of
Okay.
course, some of those free online IQ tests. Have you taken those free online IQ tests online?
I don't believe in those tests.
I
Although,
think you have to pay for them, but I did take some of the free ones here and there when I was
yeah,
younger and also older. Okay, so I won't count that. But yeah, so some varying experience with standardized testing. Um, so based on like your experience with standardized testing, did you feel like, oh, these are valid, or did you find yourself like protesting kind of like against the validity of it, like very critical, like, this isn't going to really prepare me or like truly going to measure my preparation and my academic success in college. Like I feel like it's unfair that colleges would assess me for this or whatever the other institution the tests were served for. Did you have what was your like stance in that?
I think it was kind of pointless, to be honest. And I say that mainly because of my experience of like taking those tests and then going into college. We had a situation at Cal State East Bay where they were over enrolling people that, like, if you look at their standardized tests and their grades, like they shouldn't have been admitted into the college. And so at
Okay.
that point, when the school has that ability to like bend the rules with regards to standardized tests, it makes me question the validity of them because it's
Hmm.
almost like they don't matter to some degree.
But did that school also? Jack has said he took the CFE, I believe. I don't know if you saw the chat. Thought I'd
Yeah, yeah,
interject
yeah.
just to give his voice. But did this school? Did that school have minimums? Like, did they explicitly state like these are the minimum scores you need to achieve it, or did they just reveal the stats? Like, hey, this is like on average what people receive. The entering body, our student body gets this kind of score. Or was it like that, or did they actually explicitly say like this is the minimum score you need to be admitted?
It was not necessarily like the school coming out and say this is the immediate score that needed to be admitted, but it was
Yeah.
like independent research that had been like looked into because East Bay had a bunch of different scandals where like even just the it kind of goes outside of that, but like professors using school funds for things that they shouldn't have been using it for and whatnot. And
Okay.
so there it was yeah, it was very interesting. But there was a lot of people that were admitted that ended up like dropping out because of the fact that like the when you the difference between college and high schools, with the type of work that you're doing, by the
Yeah.
time that people are getting into their junior year, a lot of people are dropping out, and there was a large number of people that had dropped out
And they dropped out because of these
for very
scandals for
no,
various
I mean
reasons.
for various different reasons, but there was also an indication that there was a period of over enrollment.
Okay. So they just drop out because they just saw that people like were the school over enrolled people and they voluntarily dropped out because they didn't want to be part of that situation, maybe where the student faculty ratio wasn't that great.
No, people were like dropping out because they couldn't cut it. Like, I mean, so like for myself, I left Cal State East Bay because I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I went to community college. There were a
Oh,
lot of people that I know as well that dropped out because they were like on the whatchamacallit. Um it's not probation or whatever, but like when you've got consecutive low GPA for like a number of quarters,
oh, okay.
they put you on like this list where basically like they monitor almost like I guess a performance improvement plan.
Yeah, yeah,
But a lot of people ended up leaving Cal State East Bay and going to Chabot College, which is like the local college.
yeah.
And so it was just mainly people just weren't doing good.
I see.
And the people that were admitted didn't have good grades to begin with. So it was almost a situation of like, well, why were they even admitted to begin with?
I see. So is the premise here that you do kind of stand by that is that standardized testing may be an indicator for academic success in college, but in your case with the school, they weren't. I mean, if that premise holds, that your school wasn't quite um, fully like appreciating that, and they just over enrolled people,
Yeah.
regardless of the scores, a little bit. I see. So
Yeah.
it could be valid to predict academic success in college, but colleges themselves may not be validly using the tests to bring in the students into the facilities
Yeah. And
institutions.
I think
Uh-huh.
there's an element too where your work should determine your eligibility criteria, your eligibility requirements, or if you meet those requirements, right? Like
What do you mean your
maybe
work?
if let's say, for example, somebody wants to get into Parsons or something of that nature,
Right.
or
In art
San
school.
Francisco School of the Arts or whatever, like, does
Yeah.
it make sense for that person to take a SAT test when their ability to be successful in that school should be determined based off of their ability to be creative and execute on that creativity?
Yeah, I mean, my gut reaction is like, yes, they shouldn't require SATs. Like, if that's what they're going to study in that school, then it shouldn't be relevant. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
Does Parsons require SAT? The new school test itself. What does that mean? The new school does not require submission of SAT subject test or ACT. Okay, so this is sounds like it was recent. Um, but yeah, is that? But I don't know if that's really, like, it might be a moot topic. Of course, if it's an art school, and the point is if to have tests that kind of is predictive of your success in college, and your college itself is not going to do any like math, writing, or reading as much, then
Mm-hmm.
yeah, of course it's not as valid. So I guess what you're trying to, what you're, let me know if you're, I'm misinterpreting here. But what you're saying is like validity of standardized test is of course going to be dependent on the subject area of the college.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's obvious. Yeah, I think that should definitely be the case. But even though it's obvious, maybe I think I think it's the idea of like being standardized, because if it's standardized, then and every college falls within the jurisdiction of that standardization,
Mm-hmm.
then they'd have to like use that as a criterion in their admissions, um, just by virtue of it being standardized and the concept of standardized. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I guess even though it may seem obvious, like, hey, if your school is like not about reading, writing, and other like academic subjects, but more of like the creative areas, then it wouldn't apply. But just the
Yeah.
politics of standardization might force or require that school, even though it might not be intuitive and even a natural and effective fit, to use like a test to, yeah, use it as
Yeah.
a criterion for their admission.
I
But
guess
yeah, I
you're
think
right.
yeah, but yeah, but I think that's just a politics. But I think you're right. Like, I don't think it should. If your subject area doesn't cover, um, but this is where the politics kind of gets interesting, because I think there's like, so the SATs administered by the College Board of something
Yeah.
something something, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be an accredited college, you have to be part of that organization, and the cost and the requirements to be part of that organization is the SAT. Then I guess because of politics, you have to use that as a criterion for
Mm,
admission. So I feel like that would be dictated more like the politics, but not necessarily by the sensibility of
yeah.
whether you should use like the SATs or not. You know, Parsons. But I think it's a recent change. It's now optional. Let me
To
see one thing.
be accredited and accept the SAT, or like be required to accept the
Oh, I
SAT.
was just looking at Parsons. It just says the new school Parsons.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, am I Parsons School of Design? It said the new school test is optional. Do I need to?
Mm,
Um, says, what does that mean? The new school does not require submission of SAT subject test, or ACT scores to consider applications complete. So yeah, I don't know when this change was. Oh, I'm just reading too much into what like the new school is. But the little school is called the new school. Um,
mm,
but it can strengthen your application apparently. I mean, I think there is some basis, even though like if your GPA is like low or high, I think GPA kind of indicates maybe like how much work you put into like the subject area. Is not necessarily your intelligence, or
yeah.
but like how much work you put into it. So if your GPA is high, at the least I think it indicates like your level of work discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And that I think for any colleges, that is a good criterion to try to capture from students.
Mm.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I guess so. I guess that's true, because then it's like you could be more analytical about things, right? Where you could say, maybe things where it's like, okay, people that were accepted uh, excelled in like reading and arithmetic, and they went on to do XY. You could track them a little bit better, right? As opposed to like if you just kind of gave this ambiguous, just like, oh, just prove your worth kind of situation. Then it's like, okay, what can you use in order to like showcase the success of your establishment, whether that be a school or whatever the case may be.
And you saying this in relation, I'm not sure I entirely followed.
Yeah, like I guess in regards to like standard, I guess I'm taking back what I'm saying, and I'm agreeing that standardization might be a good thing.
For all schools, regardless of subject areas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's a good thing, but I think the validity of it is like the relative validity of it is informed by the subject areas that the schools are like the subject are like primarily based on. Like if we're an art school, I think the SATs matter less. Sure, there's value, but to make it a requirement, maybe there's less validity to it.
Yeah. Because you could say, right, like, let's say, for example, we could say Parsons. They could say, every student that's, graduated from Parsons received a, 800 on their reading score. So if you want to get into the school, you need to make sure that you have an 800 SAT score, whatever the case may be, right? Like, granted, that might be very, what's the term? Like, causation doesn't equal...
Or correlation doesn't equal causation.
Yeah, but again, there's different stories that you can paint with the data.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with the different stories you can paint with the data. Anyway, yeah. So for going back to validity of using the tests, I mean, I personally think, I think we talked enough about validity, and we also talked about like a use for college. But another topic I did want to cover, like, what does it like measure standardized tests? So, I mean, I took the LSAT for a shit ton of time, and I do think the LSAT does measure a component of intelligence. And some of it is like learned, like mental exercises and reasoning that you can learn as well. But I think there's an overlap with like component of intelligence there. But I don't think it's like it measures a full scope of intelligence of a person, for sure. So I think it does. So I think standardized test does capture for what, depending on the areas it's trying to measure, that particular component of intelligence. Like if it's like writing or reading or math, for math it'd be like quantitative reasoning, which can be a component of intelligence. I think it does measure that a little bit, but not the full spectrum and scope of intelligence. I think somehow it implicitly measures how many resources, like financial resources, you have. Because the more money you have, the more you can prepare for the test. Like you can send your children, or you can send yourself to a school. You can buy yourself more books. You can get a private tutor. That's all going to help with like standardized testing. And someone who had not a tutor, but like went to like took courses, I feel like it helped. Rather than someone who might not have gone to that. But I think you can still make up for a lot of it, at least for the LSAT, by like self-studying. So it measures resources. What else does it measure? Yeah, I mean, for the areas it's trying to measure, I think it does a relatively good job of trying to like measure that.
Do they tell you explicitly what each of the different sections are, or is it just kind of like a little bit more ambiguous, where it's just like these are the topics that you might encounter
for the LSAT? Or for
they
tell you like this is actually, it's consistent, the format's consistent. The test has changed, by the way, with the pandemic. Changed so that you can't take the tests or like outside of your home. You can't take it in crowds, right? So you can now take the test in the home. And the test before was like 5 sections, and the 5 sections were, there's one experimental, and then we knew, this is going back to your question, we knew that there was going to be 1 reading comprehension section, 2 logical reasoning sections, and then 1 analytical reasoning section, which is kind of like a logic game. Like they give you scenario and you have to solve for like where people would fit in like a certain arrangement. what groups they'd be. So it's kind of like a game. So, but we knew there would be like 5 sections and what each of the sections would be. The experimental section we didn't know. That would be like a toss up, like a coin toss up. But I think the SAT did this too. I think the SAT had like 9 sections or 8, where one of them was experimental. But now the test is like 3 sections. Well, now it's 4, but at the beginning of the pandemic, when they started to release the test, that in-home version, it was 3 sections, and you took it at home. So
I'm curious though, like, and maybe this is a very dumb question, but like, why have that? I mean, I guess maybe because there's so many people that are applying,
yeah.
But why not just allow the bar exam be what people like, what gates people to actually become lawyers, as opposed to having that standardized test up front?
Oh, like the LSAT, because the
Yeah.
bar would test your knowledge of the law, right? You'd be tested on the law, and I don't know if that's true. I know I'm going to law school, but I don't exactly know what the bar is. But that's that what I know is like the bar is going to be a test of the law.
Yeah.
And then for that, you just have to study the law. But if you want to study the law in an unsupervised setting, that might lead you to, form bad habits / bad knowledge of the law and then take the bar. But I guess.
But people are going to do that either way, though.
Actually, yeah, that might be a premise that needs to be tested. Can you study? Can you do well at the bar without going to law school? I imagine the answer would be yes. You can probably do well at the bar without. You're right. There's a discrepancy there, I guess. I mean,
because not everybody that passes LSAT passes the bar.
True.
So
the LSAT's supposed to be predictive of your success in law school, or like how well you do in law school. And then the bar is, I don't know if it's supposed to be predictive or the purpose is more to make sure that there's like a minimum standard of like knowledge that you have of the law and the interpretation of the law to then be able to practice the law. So I don't know if it's predictive. It's probably just like just an aptitude. Like, do you have at least a minimum knowledge of like law and you can interpret it accurately?
Yeah.
So the purposes are different. But then you would think, since the ultimate purpose of law school is for you to become a lawyer, then why not just like consolidate the testing and just go directly to
just have one,
the ultimate destination of becoming a lawyer?
Because you have to. It's not a cheap test either, right? Like it's.
So what's that?
Yeah.
It's like 90, or maybe it's $160. I have no idea.
Oh, okay, that's not bad.
$160? That's expensive. Yeah. What else was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the bar. The bar, LSAT. So I wonder, like, if you do well at the bar, should you gain admission to the law school then?
Like, if I just show up and I'm like, you know what? Like, I think I have the required aptitude to understand the bar exam, and I just want to take that. I don't want to go to law school. I want to like skip all that. I did well in college. I just want to take the bar exam. Like,
yeah,
I don't see why a person can't. Like, it's a risk, right? Like, if a person wants to risk.
But the law is a lot more complex than a test. So I think going to law school will allow you to explore with a lot more depth and prepare you a lot more to the complex situations you'll face as a lawyer. So you will want to, I mean, whether it's required or not, that might be that we can discuss that. But the value of going to law school is going to be additive to your ability to be a lawyer. You'll have study cases. You'll have maybe practiced like real life situations as a lawyer in law school as well. You'll have to discuss deep concepts and different facets of law in law school. So it would definitely would have added value to becoming a lawyer. But whether it's required, like, would you?
Some places don't require it.
Don't require it.
There's other options, yeah. So like
Maine. You're looking at states. Some states say you can practice law without going to law school.
Yeah.
Nice.
Let me share
I guess that proves your point then.
Like, you can. Maine says like the requirement for Maine, it's just 2 years of studying in law school.
Oh, so you do have to go to law
1 year of law office. Oh, okay, yeah. Never mind.
Oh, but the California and Vermont, Virginia allow you to take the bar without going to law school. You can substitute 1 year with an apprenticeship. Oh, you can
Vermont is
substitute
pretty
1 2 years of law
lax.
school with an apprenticeship. I think that kind of proves your point, I guess. Yeah. So
Because
there are states that acknowledge you don't need to go to law school to necessarily be qualified to practice the law. Um, so yeah,
it's expensive. I mean, you look at how like they're saying what
dude, it's fucking expensive.
2019 $50,000 a
Yeah, but the
year.
cost of admission alone is like um really really high. Like Columbia Law School, which is where I'll be attending, is like
Oh,
$300,000 cost of admission. Yeah, it's like really high. That's really high for 3 years.
I mean, I guess that's predicated on the fact that like once you're done, right, you're gonna be doing very well off, and
Not
I mean
always. Yeah, some
that's
people go to public interest, could go to like work in prosecution, and you don't make that much money. I think in
yeah,
corporate law, yes, you do, but you know, not every lawyer. And I don't think every lawyer should want to go to corporate law, but a lot of them have to consider it because of just the large cost of financial education they have to fund through loans and debt. But yeah, because it's not just tuition; it's like room, this food, everything else. Here I'm gonna read some pings.
oh yeah, like
Yeah.
I mean you're digging a hole that you hope that you'll meet the criteria to be able to dig yourself out of, basically.
Yes, but there's some schools also have like loan forgiveness programs, like after 10 years, and that you
Hmm.
serve in like if you go to public interest, aka like
Yeah,
prosecution, work for the government. Um, there might be more to public interest areas that I just don't know. Then after 10 years, they would forgive the loan. So there are
yeah.
programs like that too. Um, but I mean, that's 10 years. Still a long time
So
horizon. Yeah,
that's a long time of
it's a
doing
long
public
time
sector
horizon.
work.
Yeah, I'm gonna read a few things that Jack said here because it's interesting. He says 160 is cheap. PMP was 550. What's PMP?
Oh, project management. Yeah, it is pretty expensive.
PMP's 550.
Yeah.
What is this? Like a career test kind of thing?
It's the was it project management uh
Wow.
something.
But do
And that's like a
corporate?
standardized test where like
Wow.
you become PMP certified. So like it looks good on your resume if you have that. It's kind of like Six Sigma, but it's like the standard. Like I think it's PMP and then it's Six Sigma if I'm not
I
mistaken.
see.
Correct
And
me if I'm
Jack
wrong,
had to
Jack.
take. Did Jack have to take this? I imagine. Yeah, you would have had to take this.
Yeah, PMP is the highest.
Okay. Wow, that is expensive.
And you
Five
have to
hundred
do
fifty.
coursework too. There's like a certain number of hours of coursework that you have to do. So like you do the PMP test, which I think is like
I feel
correct me if
yeah.
I'm wrong, Jack, but you could do like a 3-day course and then you also take the test.
I see. I see. Such a short time horizon.
Yeah. Or like for me in college, you could take classes that meet the criteria for the hours that's required to take the test and be qualified.
Yeah.
But I didn't end up taking the test after I graduated, so it was kind of a
Mm,
waste for me, even though that was
mm,
like my major.
I see. I feel like these career tests, like CPA, CFA, those tend to be like more expensive. But regardless, like paying $160, actually, as I was saying, I was thinking
Your
paying
test
100.
is a better payoff
What
if you
is?
think about it. Well, actually, no, it's not. The PMPs,
There's a lot of payout with any test, depending on like what
yeah,
road you go. But I mean, given the LSAT, like this is gonna be a test that determines and allows you to access a career, an entire career as well, which the
with
PMP
infinite
does as well too.
possibilities.
But if you just both have that same value, but the LSAT is cheaper in comparison with that other one, but still,
Yeah.
I feel like it's expensive. Um, but relatively sure it's cheaper. Okay, Jack is going crazy on this chat. Okay, so what else did he say? You can
LSAT.
also choose to self-represent without being a lawyer. You're right. You can self-represent without being a lawyer. That's the whole point of having a lawyer too, because you run the risk of not representing yourself like strongly without adequate knowledge of the law.
There was a
But
guy.
uh,
I think this was like a YouTube video or like it was like on TikTok or something. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the guy's kid died. And no, he killed his wife or his like partner, significant other, and the kid. and
Okay.
he had another son that witnessed it. And so the guy chose to represent himself in court. His inflection, his ability to speak was off the charts.
It was really
But his
uh-huh.
logic,
Didn't
like
make
it
sense.
was, even the judge was just like, in another world, you would do great as a lawyer, but unfortunately, like the evidence proves and shows that you committed this murder. So like you have to be behind bars. Like we can't give you another option.
Yeah, and there's like so many intricacies in the law that having knowledge of law is going to be advantageous in representing um, whether to settle or not, whether to plead this way or another. So but I mean, I guess you can gain that knowledge a little bit by taking the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
It's a
regardless, I
long
mean,
video.
it's
I'll share it
obvious.
with you.
Sure,
It's an interesting watch.
I'll take a
Uh,
look. Does it have a
but
million views?
it's pretty great.
Double murder. Let's see.
Like his
One
confidence
million
is just
views.
off the charts.
I'll take a look. But yeah, I mean, when it's obvious though that taking the bar and not taking the bar. If you take the bar, you're probably going to be impassive. You're probably going to be more equipped to understand the law than not taking it. Like that's kind of obvious. There's
Yeah.
value to it.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's like a sufficient requirement to be a lawyer, I guess that's a discussion for another time and maybe
Yeah.
more extensive discussion. Let me see what else Jack said. He said he's posing some very interesting things here.
Law-abiding citizen.
Okay, we got PNP. Yes. Okay, congrats, dude. You got certified earlier. Great. No, but honestly, congrats. I don't say that very like super offhandedly. Let's see. Boot camp was a week. Okay, required 4 year degree. Okay, there's a lot of law school tuition. Yeah, you're right. Law school tuition is a lot more expensive than like boot camp. Law school 250K. LSAT equals $160 some. Yeah. Okay. Have you seen law-abiding citizen? Clyde self-represents, and he's not a lawyer. No, I've not watched that movie.
I've never seen that either.
Yeah. All right. We can watch that next time. Yeah, but I don't know if you're proving my point, Jack. Yeah, this is a movie. This is not. It's fictional. It didn't happen in real life. But I mean, if you self-represent yourself, probably you pass the
I've
bar.
seen this. Yeah, I've seen that, Jack.
Nice.
There's some stuff in there that's very off the charts. That's like ridiculous.
I mean, David, you telling me that like this guy speaks so well makes me think of Ben Shapiro. Do you know Ben?
I'm not. I know Ben Shapiro. I'm not a fan of Ben Shapiro,
but he talks really well.
Yeah,
right?
And I think
really
he's
fast too.
Very good at making false statements appear to be true because of his background.
Okay, but if you want to prove that they're false, you will have to.
I'm not a lawyer, so.
Yeah, but how can you determine that it's false then if you can't prove that they're false?
It's like it's like using logic and reasoning to like in a logical way, but to get to the wrong conclusion.
That means that logic was improperly used then.
Yes.
But but to be able to prove that, you have to use logic yourself and articulate why those are false.
But the problem is that he has my problem with him is that I think he's very intelligent, and like if he wanted to continue to, I don't know if he still practices in law, but like it's obvious that he's good. He could be good at that, and he is good at that. But I think a lot of the time he uses his skill in a way that negatively impacts other people. And that's where I have a problem with him.
Yeah. I think, I don't disagree with that. I'm sure that happens. Like, I'm sure he has a negative impact on people. But if you want to like make a statement, whether it's like false or true, you'd have to logically demonstrate that, like with like logic, like why this is false, why that's true.
Yeah.
Right. All right, well, we're almost at time. There was a digression we went through here, but What does it measure? Standardized. We discussed what standardized testing measures.
Jack, are you talking about Shapiro?
I feel like he has conversations with himself to practice. I wouldn't be surprised.
He seems like that kind of guy.
With himself to practice. Don't you guys, when you guys like have had to go to do speeches in public, wouldn't you guys practice? You would never practice speeches if you have to speak in public. Dude, I'd practice.
I think about the structure and I focus on practicing the logical structure. And I also, when I do presentations, I try to force myself to slow down. So I'm thinking about what I'm going to say, as opposed to just like reading off of a piece of paper or something like that.
I see. But you don't like film yourself or like look at yourself in the mirror and practice, or at least record yourself. I would record myself sometimes and hear what I sound like.
I mean, I think the thing that helps me is just like studying enough about the topic to the point where I have that basic understanding. So like when I make a video on YouTube, like I'll write out some basic things, but like I know I guess that is practice, is repetition. I've done it so many times that like I know what to do. I know kind of where things need to be as far as.
But you don't prepare in advance anymore. Like
not outside of outlining stuff. Like I'll outline stuff and then I just I'll just talk about it because I know about like the different products and I've tested different products and I already have my like perspective or bias, I guess you could say.
Got it. Interesting. But okay. I mean, I would think preparation would help, would add value, even though you don't need it. It would still like add value to an extent.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'll take that back because I have invested in like resources to like learn how to improve. So I guess I take that back. It's not just like completely blind or like completely off the cuff.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
You're not innately, naturally super talented improvisational speaker. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm not good at speeches.
But I think people who do that are like pretty impressive. But I think the majority of us, I think anybody who just would value or benefit from preparation to an extent. Yeah. Anyway, I think we're at the hour. TLDR, standardized testing. We took it. We have some experience. It's valid to an extent. There might be other circumstances that inform its validity, and we measure some components, but maybe not all the components to the full extent that we think it may measure. Yeah, I feel like that was a little bit confusing as well too. But that's a TLDR for now. I think that's it. Yeah, first video. Thanks for agreeing to do this. I'm sure you have a lot more experience, but for me, this was a very new experience, like recording a video.
The first time's always hard. What I would recommend, I wouldn't publish the video immediately. I would say record. I don't know if we want to end it here or whatever, but
why don't we say our goodbyes and then
we could talk a little bit more about it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening. Until next time. Bye. And thanks for staying, Jack.